ODD TV.
Kill the programming.
The Shining, a movie that pretty much every conspiracy researcher and truth seeker out there has spent time looking at and dissecting to a certain extent. The film left its mark on cinematic history back in 1980 when it premiered, and it's still held in high regard to this day. Although the book's author, Stephen King, wasn't at all satisfied with Stanley Kubrick's film adaptation of the novel, King was pleased to see his follow-up, Dr. Sleep, turned into a movie. But what could they do to possibly make a film even more terrifying than The Shining? How about drawing inspiration from really terrifying events from the past and some of the sick and demented things that filthy rich psychopedos do every single day and have been doing for who knows how long? We'll get to that in a brief moment. Let me give you my quick review from the perspective of an average layman that enjoys movies, loves sports, and watches the news every day believing that it's real. Dr. Sleep's transition from book to film was absolutely genius for the fact that it ran with things from Stanley Kubrick's film adaptation, which again Stephen King did not like, but it perfectly merged it with King's follow-up that did not contain many of the elements that Kubrick brought to his version of the film. By the time the book Dr. Sleep was published, Stanley Kubrick had been deceased for 14 years. At least that's the official story. The best of researchers know that Hollywood big shots and celebrities have been faking their deaths for decades, maybe as long as Hollywood has been around. So when someone from that industry is pronounced dead, it's actually unreasonable to assume it's true. And in the case of Kubrick, he died right after wrapping up his last movie, Eyes Wide Shut, which is also based on real events surrounding secret societies and their sex magic rituals. A fascinating topic I covered in quite a bit of detail in early 2017 on my video entitled Eyes Wide Shut, Illuminati, Sex Magic, and the Rothschilds' Surrealist Ball. However, people in Hollywood really do die sometimes, and no one knows for certain in this instance. Some believe Kubrick exposed too much truth in Eyes Wide Shut, and therefore he had his eyes wide shut. But since the movie still came out 3 months after his death, with minimal changes to the nude orgy scenes in order to receive an R rating instead of an NC-17 rating, which would restrict anyone under the age of 18 from getting into the movie, others believe Kubrick's death could easily be a hoax. Frankly, I do not care. Funny, there was a recording released a few years ago claiming to be an interview with Stanley Kubrick alive and well after his death, spilling the beans about filming the fake NASA moon landing right after directing one of the most believable-looking outer space movies during the late 1960s. 2001, A Space Odyssey. But it was an obvious hoax. I saw truth seekers falling for that one. I kind of felt bad for them at the time. But basically, if you're unaware of the symbolism in The Shining, then here you go. The movie was used as a booth for Kubrick to confess that he indeed directed the NASA moon landing in an attempt to pass the staged event off as being something that really happened. I'll post plenty of my videos about it in the description so you can know just as much about it as I do. If you have two brain cells to bang together, it will be so blatant that you'll probably kick yourself in the ass for not seeing it sooner.
Dr. Sleep.
Dr. Sleep revolves around a band of misfits that travel across the country looking for children that shine, abduct them, torture them, and murder them. They do this to extract something they call steam, which is the life force of the victims. By inhaling the steam, they become stronger and live longer. What makes it even more disturbing is that the steam is more effective when it's pure, and to purify it, they torture and torment their victims. How exactly is this based on true events? Well, have you ever heard of blood libel, also known as blood accusation? Blood libel is when a particular group of people, let's just say the Synagogue of Satan, methodically kill a child, usually Christian, in order to use their blood as part of a ritual, namely Passover. One of the earliest writings we have about blood libel comes from a guy named Democritus, not to be confused with Democritus the philosopher. One of Democritus' writings alleged that every 7 years, the catch a stranger whom they offer as a sacrifice, killing him by tearing his flesh into shreds. One of the most famous cases of blood libel is that of William of Norwich. In England in 1144, a young boy was found dead with stab wounds in the woods. William's hagiographer, Thomas of Monmouth, claimed that he heard from a converted named Theobald of Cambridge that every year there is an international council of at which they choose the country in which a child will be killed during Easter. The legend was turned into a cult, with William acquiring the status of a martyr. More on William a little later. The blood of children is said to have healing properties, and it's more effective if the children are tortured prior to the consumption of the blood. What's really crazy is that it's now been proven that young blood has healing and regenerative powers. Also, adrenaline is known to release a chemical called adrenochrome, which makes it more potent and effective. In Hunter S. Thompson's novel, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, which is heavily rooted in autobiographical incidents, he claims to have been offered and to have tried adrenochrome. This particular part of the book even made it into the film adaptation starring Johnny Depp as Hunter S. Thompson himself.
What is this shit?
That stuff makes pure mescaline seem like ginger beer, man.
Don't pull all his teeth out.
I remember thinking, Jesus, what a terrible thing to lay on somebody with a head full of acid.
Anyway, the last thing in the world you want to do is call this hotel again. Trace the call and put you straight behind bars. Well, you have to phone that, baby. Yeah, I know, it was horrible. It's all over the map. Oh my God. There's someone at the door. There's someone at the door. Hey! Hey! Oh, I'm innocent! It was you! It was you! It was you! Don't put that thing on me!
Let's get back to Dr. Sleep.
Violet McGraw is Madeleine McCann.
At the start of the movie, a young girl named Violet wanders away from her parents while they are out on a picnic for the holiday. She stumbles across a beautiful Jewish woman who is wearing a top hat. The girl is fascinated by her hat. She thinks it's a magic hat. The woman promises to show Violet a magic trick. She pulls a flower out of her hat. While the little girl is admiring the flower, the rest of the child abducting cult sneak up behind the girl. The lady then snatches the flower from the girl and eats it.
You don't eat flowers.
She says. The lady in the top hat says,
It's the special ones that taste best.
While the little girl looks on in horror, the rest of the cult pounce on her, and the little girl screams. Her name is Violet.
And she tastes like flowers.
I'm certain that Stephen King used Madeleine McCann as inspiration for this character.
It's a heartbreaking case that still puzzles investigators around the world. What happened to Madeleine McCann? The 3-year-old disappeared from her family's hotel room while they were on vacation in Portugal nearly 12 years ago.
Madeleine is also a type of flower. And their surnames are very similar. McGraw, McCann. Not to mention the book was written after Madeleine's disappearance, so King could have easily used the story to come up with the character, Violet. The disappearance of Madeleine McCann sparked some very creepy stories and conspiracies. One theory in particular is that she was abducted or sold for human sacrifice for a satanic festival called Beltane, which is like the satanic version of Easter, even though Easter is the satanic version of Easter. So thinking thinking about that, remember that Thomas of Monmouth said he heard about a tradition in which children are sacrificed around Easter. Anyway, to me, it couldn't be more obvious that young Violet is created from the Madeleine McCann incident.
Bradley Trevor is William of Norwich.
Another strange similarity in the blood libel tales of Dr. Sleep is exactly 8 years after the murder of Violet McGraw, the cult strikes again. Remember Democritus said that a child is abducted every 7 years? Well, in the movie, 8 years has passed when the gang find their next victim, lure him into a van, take him into the middle of a forest, tie him to a crucifix, and stab him to death. The young boy cries and prays to God, but is mocked. Rose the Hat even says,
Pain purifies steam. Fear too, so you understand.
which reveals that she is most certainly alluding to adrenochrome. William of Norwich's body was discovered by Thomas of Monmouth. This is his account of the murder. Having shaved his head, they stabbed it with countless thorn points and made the blood come horribly from the wounds they made. Some of those present adjudged him to be fixed to a cross in mockery of the Lord's passion. Bradley Trevor's murder is too similar to William of Norwich to be a coincidence, especially when the theme of the film is taken into account. So it's my belief that Stephen King drew from the story of William for his Bradley Trevor character.
Freemasonry, so obvious it's stupid.
One thing couldn't be clearer, and that is that this group of misfits is supposed to represent the ancient Masonic cult. The first piece of evidence is their headwear. The main villain, Rose the Hat, wears a black top hat, found here on this Masonic website, and her partner, Crow Daddy, wears a Stetson fur felt hat, also seen on the same website. These hats are worn by the highest-ranking Freemasons. The Freemasons wear these hats like a badge to signal to other high-ranking members in the other lodges. The Masonic Lodge of Education writes, "A brotherhood of many who speak different languages, who reside possibly half a world away, who each wear different hats, come together as one within the Brotherhood of Freemasonry." Each member of Rose the Hat's cult is of a different ethnicity. They all have lived for hundreds and hundreds of years, or as Rose says,
"You watched empires rise and fall. Cheered the gladiators in Rome, sailed across oceans to new worlds, while you fed on kings and princes and popes."
The top hat and black magic.
why are top hats associated with magic? As kids, when we see top hats, we connect them to magic tricks. But as adults, we connect it with social status and wealth. Well, as I mentioned, top hats were often worn by the highest-ranking Freemasons who would often perform strange rituals. One famous occultist, Aleister Crowley, first coined the term for these twisted rituals as blood sex magic. It's rumored that little children would often be involved in these sick rituals. Aleister Crowley formed another cult called Ordo Templi Orientis, which would perform many strange blood and sex rituals. The cult had many famous members, one being the musician who wrote the song I Don't Like Mondays, Bob Geldof.
Tell me why I don't like Mondays. Tell me why I don't like Mondays.
His daughter later spoke out against the cult, alleging that they used children for their rituals. 6 months after she made those allegations, she was found dead in her apartment by an apparent overdose. The bad guy with the top hat is quite the popular trope in movies that touch upon the topic of child abduction. Professor Screw Eyes in We're Back, the Dinosaur Story, is a traveling circus master who tries to lure children into his show. The children have to sign a blood contract. He gets his powers from the fear of the little children.
Proceed to the contract.
Louis, I'm scared.
You are? Good.
Dr. Foslier, also known as the Shadow Man, is the main antagonist of Disney's 2009 feature film, The Princess and the Frog. He is an evil witch doctor who plans to rule New Orleans with the help from his friends on the other side. Anyone remember the child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? That guy is total nightmare fuel for any child watching. The fandom wiki describes him as a black-clad, large-nosed man who is employed to hunt down children and take them away. He carries a large net like that used to catch butterflies, and a rather menacing-looking hook such as those used by old-fashioned abortionists. The child catcher occasionally catches his prey by luring them out with lollipops. What's even more unsettling is that this character did not exist in the original book. Disney's producers just thought it would be a good addition to the children's musical. I caught the same exact thing when I was working on a video about Disney's Return to Oz. The reason I made the video is because at the beginning of the movie, Dorothy is taken to a Victorian-style insane asylum by her auntie, where she forcefully undergoes electroshock therapy. She then dissociates from reality, like that of a victim of the original declassified MKUltra experiments done by the CIA, where patients were drugged with LSD or something similar, and tortured until the point that their minds were shattered, or fractured. This would put the victims in a very vulnerable state where you could either withdraw any information you want from them, or you can reprogram their mind with orders to carry out any number of agendas, including assassinations or so-called terrorist attacks. The weird thing is, none of this is in the original Return to Oz book, where the story was supposedly coming from. The whole movie ended up being dark, twisted, and it scared the ever-living shit out of children. These are just a couple of reasons why you can find this meme right here going around. Regular people that don't think critically see Disney as this magical world where dreams come true, and truth seekers like myself see Disney for what it is. It's magic, all right. It's black magic, witchcraft, and sorcery. That's just what Disney was made for, and after all, magic wands are carved from Hollywood.
The Whistleblower.
In 2017, former CIA officer Robert David Steele blew the whistle on the satanic psychopaths that abduct children for their organs and their blood.
It turns out that drinking children's blood is an anti-aging device. This is just really sick and disgusting, but it's a fact. It's a chemical fact. And if you drink adrenalized children's blood, which is to say you terrorize the child, not just with sodomy, but with torture and with other satanic ritual things. If you adrenalize the child's blood before you kill them and drink their blood, this is a doubly effective anti-aging device. You can also harvest children's bone marrow. So children are being killed for their bone marrow as an anti-aging device for the elite. I don't make this stuff up.
Here's a clip from another interview where he divulges even more information.
Yes, you have Hillary Clinton's #1 lady caught in Haiti trafficking in children. And Clinton used the full power of the U.S. government to get that woman out of jail. She was trafficking in children for Hillary Clinton. Okay?
When you say for Hillary, and I'm sorry to keep cutting you off, Robert.
The Clinton Foundation, no, I'm with you, man. The Clinton Foundation is a major child trafficker.
I did not know that. I have to be honest.
I don't know that either, but I'm reading all this stuff, and it's very clear that the Clinton Foundation, among other things, is a massive charity fraud. Charles Ortel has done a lot of good work on this. But what we just had, this is just so, I mean, I'm sponsoring a book on pedophilia, and it's going to be one chapter at a time on Kindle Shorts and free online. It's by Joaquim Hagopain, who is a West Point graduate, a very talented investigative journalist. And he is documenting this book with links and everything. And so we're documenting pedophilia around the world. I mean, Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan are two of the most pedophile nations on the planet. Okay? I mean, little boys are groomed from birth to be little sex slaves, and then they're murdered, and they're blood drunk. You know, I mean, it's just...
I'm sorry?
Their blood is drunk. Child Peter Thiel, you know Peter Thiel, the Silicon Valley guy?
Yes.
He's just come out publicly and said that he has transfusions of children's blood because it's an anti-aging device. Peter Thiel, the Silicon Valley billionaire. If you just do a search for Peter Thiel children's blood transfusions, you'll get right to it. Now, the part that he's not telling you is that the real value in anti-aging is when the child has been terrorized to death so that their blood is adrenalized.
Now, I'm not going to say whether or not this guy is some sort of operative, but I can tell you that it's a good rule of thumb to never put your trust into anyone. That goes for me as well. You can still be civil and friendly with people without having to give them your trust. Only trust the conclusions that you arrive at after you have thoroughly and rigorously studied and examined all available information on the matter of concern in an unbiased manner. Robert David Steele says plenty of stuff that's true, like what he's saying here, for instance. Doesn't mean he's not leading people astray when it comes to other things, and that's exactly what disinfo agents do. He seemingly does a fantastic job at exposing the Zionists, although he pushes the idea that the deep state is real, and specifically says that it's not a part of Israel. I would have to disagree with that. The guy pushes the whole deep state QAnon, President Trump is against the NWO angle really hard. If this guy was CIA, then he knows better than anyone that presidents are selected before a single vote is cast. So yeah, be careful when listening to this guy. As the saying goes, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves. I can hear some of your blood boiling out there. Just try to relax, take a deep breath, calm down. It's gonna be okay.
Statistics for missing children.
You can try your best to find out how many children go missing each year in the US. The statistics pages run you around in circles, tell blatant lies, and omit information that would be beneficial to the numbers. For this video, I wanted to find a source that straight up tells you how many children go missing each year. On the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children website, you can read about the missing children statistics, but end up nowhere by the time you're done. I find this disturbing because it reeks of obvious cover-up. Also, you have to think about what you don't see on the website. I mean, this is the leading institution for tracking missing children cases, and there was no mention whatsoever of children in the system, foster children, and children under protective services. Guess what? Those are the most vulnerable children when it comes to trafficking and exploitation. I did a simple search for Child Protective Agencies child trafficking. That was the search term. You can easily do it yourself. And immediately found an official source for court services called National Center for State Courts. They have recorded the specific issue of human trafficking intersection with child welfare. Children in the foster care system are particularly vulnerable to trafficking. The policies under consideration could impact the handling of these cases in state courts. Position: state court leaders support efforts to effectively address human trafficking of vulnerable children and to provide adequate funding to state courts for training to better screen and recognize such cases and to implement best court practices. Summary: the issue of human trafficking, including sex trafficking, is getting increased attention by Congress. Attention also focusing on the intersection between trafficking and child welfare. Children in the foster care system are particularly vulnerable to being trafficked in the sex trade. So this is a well-known issue, and it's completely left out of the go-to statistical data website. Not to mention how they beat around the bush like crazy with how many children go missing and how they go missing, when there's websites like worldometers.info that constantly keep track of all sorts of stuff in real time. You're telling me they can keep track of all this stuff live while it's happening, but can't track missing children's reports the same way? Instead, they just dance around in circles with explanations that only leave genuine researchers with more questions? I don't buy it. And then there's stuff like this. For 20 years, a Tennessee baby thief kidnapped more than 5,000 children from the streets, hospitals, and shanty towns of Memphis. Now, 70 years later, survivors of her House of Horrors are confronting the past. The article goes on to say, no one knows or perhaps cares to remember the exact day the Tennessee Children's Home Society in Memphis closed. What is known is that 69 years ago, in late November or early December, the place workers called a House of Horrors closed its doors for good. For more than 20 years, Tan ran the Tennessee Children's Home Society, where she and an elaborate network of co-conspirators kidnapped and abused children to sell them off to wealthy adoptive parents at a steep profit. Like there was a huge market for regular people, one, wanting to buy babies, and two, knowing where to make the purchase. That's just absurd. It also says her favorite scheme was to drive through impoverished neighborhoods, picking out the prettiest children, and then offer them rides in her shiny black luxury car. Once the children were in, they usually never saw their families again. So this was happening between 1930 and 1950. Was it an isolated event? Doubtful. Can you imagine how much crazier this stuff has become in today's age? These children are being taken into special facilities, bought and paid for by the people that go on to torture these children, strike unimaginable fear into them, and then extract the adrenochrome, so a select few can remain youthful and continue this sadistic cycle. So I hope to have established that Dr. Sleep is indeed based on a true story. Hollywood is rampant with adrenochrome symbolism in their movies. Monsters, Inc. is about adrenochrome. A movie about monsters that sneak into the bedrooms of children at night in order to scare them and harvest their fear. Look for videos by Enter the Stars Reloaded about that. Just type in Enter the Stars Reloaded, Monsters, Inc., adrenochrome. He did a great job at exposing Monsters, Inc. for what it is. So let's check out a couple clips before I get out of here. Here's a clip with Lady Gaga talking about her role on American Horror Story Hotel. I apologize for the quality, but I couldn't find the source for the life of me.
Like the Countess who feeds on the blood of children.
You must have a lot of questions. I have answers.
I'm kidnapping children that I keep in the hotel upstairs, and I bring home people to feed on, and then Iris helps me to filter the blood through the children. She loves to hunt. She loves her condition. There's a lot of grappling with addiction with the show.
Check this out. Here's a guy named Phil Snyder exposing the truth about adrenochrome in the 1990s.
To look at a human being as a bag of food. They're not cannibals. They don't eat the flesh and the bones and all that kind of stuff. They use the glandular secretions of animals and human beings as a mixture of the vitamins for their food. They get high off of our adrenal gland substances called adrenochrome. It's something like cocaine to them. Now, what can we do about it? Right now, if we do nothing, we can do nothing about it, and it'll continue to go on. Basically, we'll be led in the dark, and you'll keep seeing more and more people disappear. Right now, there's 100,000 children totally unaccountable through FBI archives, cannot be traced anywhere. They haven't been murdered. Nobody's ever seen them. I think they're hauled underneath in some of these bases, and they are summarily done away with, and they are literally eaten. Now, that is a scary thing indeed. And I'm not asking you to believe me in toto. I am asking you to seriously do enough homework that you can go out in through the public record, through the congressional records, find out who's voting for what, and go from there. Do your own program. Do your own agenda, and do your own speaking out. And if enough of us do this, there is some saving grace.
This is just so disturbing and makes me realize that we're witnessing the kingdom of darkness crumble before our eyes. This is why everything in 2020 has gone the way it's gone. This is why it's only going to get more crazy from here on out. As I said earlier in the video, I have so much stuff about the reality of adrenochrome and blood libel that I want to go over, so expect more on this topic soon.
You'd kill to look younger, but eternal life is terrible for your skin. Introducing the souls of innocent children. This proven ancient formula will give you the youthful, radiant appearance any witch would die for.
I am beautiful.
But wait, there's more. For a limited time, we'll throw in the spirit of a second unwilling soul absolutely free. Look younger or cease to exist entirely.
Bye-bye.
Watch Hocus Pocus tonight at 7:35, part of 31 Nights of Halloween on Freeform.
So until then, this has been ODD Truth-O-Vision. Kill the programming and never sleep again. God bless everyone. Stay safe out there.